Because of why I search the deep through endless nights, no time to sleep. The call inside I can't deny. I'll find the light because of why.
Hey everyone, so let's talk about Hong Kong. It's this incredible, vibrant city, but there's one question that always comes up. Why is it so ridiculously expensive to live there? For most people, just the idea of owning a home is a complete fantasy. To really get why, we need to look past that famous skyline and dive into some pretty shocking numbers. Okay, I want you to just look at this number for a second. 20.7. Just let that hang there. What do you think that could possibly mean? That's right. It would take an average family almost 21 years of saving every single dollar. No food, no rent, nothing, just to buy a home. It's pretty wild, and it's why Hong Kong has been named the world's least affordable city to buy a house in for like over a decade straight. Now, the first thing everyone thinks is, well, duh, it's a tiny island and there are over 7 million people crammed onto it. It's just crowded. But is that really the whole story? Turns out, that's just scratching the surface. The real reason is kind of like peeling an onion. There are a whole bunch of layers to it. So in this explainer, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to peel them back one by one to get to the real heart of the problem. So let's start with the most obvious layer, the one everyone points to, the physical land itself. You see all those skyscrapers packed together, and you just assume there's no more room to build. But the way Hong Kong's land is actually used might surprise you. Okay, so this is where that whole "it's too crowded" argument starts to fall apart. Take a look at this. Only about 7% of all the land in Hong Kong is actually used for housing. A massive 40% is beautiful country parks and nature reserves. So yeah, the places where people live are super dense, but a huge chunk of the territory isn't even developed. The problem isn't just a lack of land, it's about how the land is being used or not used. And that takes us to a much deeper layer. This scarcity of land isn't just a natural thing, it's actually man-made. The real issue isn't a lack of space, it's a lack of available space, thanks to some very specific policies and some very powerful interests. So where is all this land hiding? Well, it's locked up in all these different categories. You've got stuff like the small house policy, which is this old rule that sets aside land for certain villagers. Then you have huge brownfield sites, old industrial lots that are just sitting there being used for storage instead of housing. Throw in a few massive private golf courses and land that developers are just sitting on, and suddenly you realize there are thousands of hectares that could solve this crisis, but they're just off limits. So you have to ask, why isn't this land being used? Well, this quote from the head of the Real Estate Developers Association pretty much says it all. It shows you there's a really powerful incentive to keep the housing supply tight, because that keeps prices incredibly high. And now we get to the very core of the onion, the economic and political system that didn't just create this mess, but actually has a vested interest in making sure it stays this way. To get this, you need to understand one key idea: inelastic housing supply. It sounds technical, but it's simple. In a normal market, if the price of something, say apples, shoots through the roof, farmers will plant more apple trees to cash in, right? But in Hong Kong's housing market, that doesn't happen. Prices can go to the moon, and the number of new homes being built barely even budges. And a huge reason for that comes from a place you might not expect: the government itself. You see, a ton of the government's money comes from selling land to developers at auction for sky-high prices, and from taxes on property sales. So if prices were to fall, the government's budget would take a massive hit. It's a pretty serious conflict of interest. The result of this whole system is just staggering inequality. Just look at this chart. It shows how much of the wealth the absolute richest people have. Look at Hong Kong's bar. It doesn't just beat other countries, it completely dwarfs them. This system has created one of the biggest gaps between the rich and everyone else on the entire planet. But look, this isn't just about economics and charts. These policies have a real and often devastating impact on the daily lives of millions of regular people. This is the human side of the crisis. This says it all, doesn't it? On one hand, you have the glossy ads for luxury apartments, and on the other, you have the reality for a grown number of people: nano flats. These are apartments smaller than a shipping container. That's the first step on the property ladder for many. And for those who can't even dream of buying,
The public housing system, the supposed safety net, is at a breaking point. In just about 10 years, the average wait for a public rental home has almost tripled, from around 2 years to 6 years. Imagine waiting 6 years, often in horrible conditions, just for a shot at an affordable place to live.
So what's the big solution on the table? It's called the Lantau Tomorrow Vision, this gigantic project to literally build new islands from scratch to put houses on. On one hand, it could create housing for 1 million people. On the other, the price tag is absolutely astronomical, and environmentalists are sounding major alarms. And this really brings us to the fundamental question at the heart of it all. Can a city truly solve a crisis when so many powerful players, including the government itself, are financially benefiting from the very problem they're supposed to be fixing?
It is a super complex problem, and there are no easy answers. What do you think is the best way forward for Hong Kong? Let us know what you think down in the comments. Thanks for hanging out with us. And if this was useful, please do us a favor and hit that like button, share it, and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.